go by the name of Hari.
Мгм.
I was introduced to spiritual life, I think in 1968.
Мгм.
I was originally very interested in traditions of Buddhism, especially Zen Buddhism, specifically archery and entering into a meditative state through usage of the arrow and the bow. I was
Mhm.
quite good at archery and also fencing. I was the captain of my college team
What is fencing?
with a foil.
Мгм.
And at that time, I found that these techniques of focused meditation were very compatible with me. I liked it very much. But I was also interested in other things. So I then entered into the Baha'i
Мгм.
faith, and I embraced that. I really liked it. I still to this day very much like it.
Mhm.
I liked the culture around it. I liked everything about it. And then right after that, I got initiated by Maharishi.
Мгм.
And I liked very much the mantra.
Мгм.
I was doing the mantra meditations. And then maybe 3-4 months later, a friend of mine introduced me to the Hare Krishna movement.
Мгм.
And I liked that so much that I joined and moved into the temple. I did a lot of things in that. I mean, a lot of stuff. To describe what I did would take like books. So I did a lot of things and I became very close with the founder. I traveled around the world with him for many years.
Swami Prabhupade.
Yes.
This is the right name to call
Yeah.
him.
Prabhupada, yeah.
Мгм.
And also I got to meet many other spiritualists. Like I met the acharyas of the Madhva Sampradaya at the time, also of the Ramanuja Sampradaya. Those are schools of thought in Sanskrit called Sampradaya, where knowledge is descending. I met many different, extremely interesting people. I spent a lot of time in holy places. In Vrindavan, I was quite close with one of the Babajis there who was really a deeply spiritual person. He had no followers. You couldn't even give him a donation.
Мгм.
He had to secretly give a donation to his deities when he wasn't looking.
Мгм.
He was a very selfless person, had mystic power. He could heal you from various diseases. I dove into philosophy. I was instrumental in producing books, and I was transcribing and doing the initial editing on of Prabhupada's books,
Мгм.
which was complicated because it was mostly Sanskrit and Bengali, and you had to go through these enormous volumes of the stuff to find anything he had just quoted, and
Мгм.
it was difficult. So, of course, I was involved in philosophy. I gave thousands of classes.
Мгм.
But for me, what was more important was the experience, which is why bhakti is so interesting,
Мгм.
because it is a process that brings you into various experiences.
Мгм.
It's a process whereby you develop your love,
Мгм.
which is an active emotion,
Мгм.
in service to the Supreme, which is one of the essential aspects, or the most essential aspect of bhakti yoga and spirituality.
Мгм.
And what I liked about that, it was something you could taste. I was a leader in the sense of management. I had to manage a lot of facilities, a lot of people. And I saw that people basically all people have similar problems, and that the path to enlightenment is littered with obstacles of various kinds that are not put there to test you or not put there to make trouble for you, but are within you as part of your long experiences in this world, where our true identity is hidden from us or covered by all of these experiences. It's kind of like if you were to, go to a concert, music concert, let's say some pop music or rock music or whatever, and your senses would be bombarded by this power of the music, of the beats, of the rhythms, of the tonality, of the crowd, and it would be very exciting. So when you would leave that concert, your brain would be vibrating, your whole body would still be vibrating for hours later. I used to play music in these concerts for sometimes tens of thousands of people, and I couldn't get to sleep. I mean, we would start at 6 in the afternoon and we would not be done until like 2 in the morning. And then I wouldn't be able to get to bed until 3 or 4. I couldn't sleep because my brain was pounding with rhythm, with song, with music, with energy. So it was impossible to sleep. So similarly, each and every experience we have makes an impact on our consciousness, makes an impact on our being. It reverberates. The energy reverberates. And that energy is so powerful that it gradually covers over our natural energy of spirit. So what the real thing I'm getting at here is that you can't just forget about your human existence and run forward towards enlightenment because you know it and you know what to do and you can do some techniques and you can do some meditation or you can chant and you run towards enlightenment and just forget about all this stuff, because that does not work.
So your experience of Swami Prabhupada movement towards enlightenment, that it does not work?
No, I didn't say that at all. The process, the ideas of the process, the experiences you can attain, they're fine. There's no need for me to speak about the defects in any particular religious organization, and just simply embrace the spiritual with the idea that if I can just do that, I'll solve all these other things automatically. My experience with the thousands, literally, of people I have dealt with is that does not work.
Can you give me an example of that? So what's like what it was Swami Prabhupada idea to get to enlightenment like that, and what was the idea and how it was working?
Well, historically speaking, the most powerful and most recent example of this idea was Lord Chaitanya in India, maybe 520, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years ago. I don't know. I can't get the mathematics together immediately. And within his time, everybody lived in villages. They all had their families. They took care of their children. They had their teachers. They had their spiritual life. They gathered together and did their spiritual practices. And they did all of the other things they do in life. And it was a big family. Lord Chaitanya, he was an avatar,
Uh-huh.
Radha and Krishna, who appeared
Mhm.
in this world in West Bengal.
Mhm.
But everything that came afterwards was based
Mhm.
on the chanting. He brought this chanting, he
Mhm.
brought this direct idea of connection of Radha and Krishna, of love of God directly to people.
Mhm.
But the context of within which he did it was a very familial context, a context of people who work together. Even when he went to Jagannath Puri, the whole society, it
Mhm.
was very integrated within society, and yet at the same time separate from society.
Mhm.
So
What,
he did not,
chanting was integrated or what?
yeah, well, chanting, yes. Lord Chaitanya brought this chanting
Chanting.
all over India at the time.
Mhm.
And this chanting was this like Hare Krishna, Hare
Mhm.
Krishna, all of this kind of thing. So this was he actually established that as the main principle of the bhakti practice.
Mhm.
So, and this kind of went on for a while. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was a acharya, he was a magistrate in the British government in late 1800s.
Mhm.
He was extremely intelligent, wrote wonderful books. He was the person in charge of this area that he represented for the British government. So he had an intimate knowledge of the British and their Western ways and also his culture.
Mhm.
He was really synthesizing it in a very nice way. But after that period of time,
Mhm.
it turned more into a, we have temples and you have people living in the temples, and then that became like the ISKCON way.
Mhm.
So the integration with the culture of within which each and every preaching effort, let's say,
Mhm.
or religious church, wherever it was
Mhm.
established, was more or less ignored
Mhm.
in and replaced with another kind of culture, this Indian kind of culture. You
Mhm.
wear tilak and you wear dhoti and you have Indian ways of doing things, and you do things in Indian ways. And
What culture was before Indian?
no, but they were Indian,
They
so
were.
that's okay for them. So if you're living in Bengal, to live like a Bengali makes
Uh-huh.
perfect sense.
Uh-huh.
But if you're living in Moscow,
Yes, it's
you
quite
know,
cold. Yeah.
it's different.
Mm-hmm.
So also the ideals,
Mm-hmm.
there were certain ideals which were created, like, women are less intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
So you're less intelligent
Mm-hmm.
and your brain is half as big as a man's brain. I'm telling you what.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
no, not at all. And your whole job is to live at home and take care of your husband and
Mhm.
take care of your children and nothing else. Well, this was all around the world to a large extent,
Mm-hmm.
but this idea was very much absorbed into, there was a Victorian England kind of idea, because
Mm-hmm.
these ideas weren't even relevant from long ago in India, where
Mm-hmm.
much more enlightened society was there.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were many kinds of ideas like this,
Mm-hmm.
which were not relevant to people
Mm-hmm.
and which were causing people harm,
Mm-hmm.
and which were not considering these individuals and their individual needs, health needs, or peace needs, or financial needs, or security, or of creating a society which would be sustaining and which would care for the people within it.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, it became more corporate, more like a corporation,
Mm-hmm.
which was very much involved in making money, very much involved in making huge endeavors, huge amounts of people, and huge donations, and huge buildings, and huge books, and huge, everything big, and that would be the way of preaching. I did not like that. Ultimately, I liked it while I was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Not liked. I did it because it was what I was doing. But at one point, I saw that I'm at a crossroads, and either I have to care about people, specifically children and women and families, or I've got to care about a corporation. And me, personally, I chose the people and I rejected the corporation.
When it happened?
98.
Mm-hmm.
So since that time,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as you know, I've been very much related with our group in St. Petersburg and Moscow and other places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what I was saying before was that the path to enlightenment has to embrace the individual
Mm-hmm.
in all ways, in his body, in his mind, in his consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Or I took the essential principles from the Vedic traditions and
Wow.
distilled them out. The only time that exists
Mm-hmm.
is the present. There is only the present, nothing else exists. But the past events, each of them had been the present.
Mm-hmm.
All of them lead up to this right now.
Mm-hmm.
So everything I am right now is a product of everything that has happened in the past, plus my free will to make a choice
Mm-hmm.
what I will do next. In our temples, we have deities because they are the energy of that divine. They are divine energy. They are divine. And we stand before them and just allow ourselves to feel that. And then to present our energy. And we make a connection as an awareness. We make a divine union with the divine. And we feel, but to embrace self, to accept self, is so much harder than you think. But once you do that, to connect to the divine is easy because you're the same quality. It's instantaneous.
Is this enlightenment from your point of view?
Well, the word enlightenment.
Do you use the word enlightenment? Has it been used in the Prabhupada tradition?
I don't use it.
You don't use it?
No, the reason I don't use it is because it has to lighten, as in you're in darkness and then the light turns on. It has many implications to it because of the way it has been used throughout time. That enlightenment can mean to some people, all of a sudden the light goes on and bingo, there you are. That you work, struggle, austerity, obstacle overcome, practices, yoga, austerity, so many things. And then at one point, bing, you get that flash of light. Now, I'm not saying somebody may have had that, sure. I'm not saying that's not true. But for most of us, that's not the way it works. It's a gradual process, little by little by little. Yet, the idea that you're on a path to enlightenment, I will accept. That's why I use that, because that's fine by me. Path to enlightenment, sure. It's a good path. But the actual process is a process of connection to self, because we are already that spirit within. So we just have to embrace it. And to connect with the divine is our natural position. It's a natural thing. So the word enlightenment, I don't like. The ideas of it, sure, why not?
Tell me what, like in Hinduism in general or Prabhupada branch, was it used, or what was the meanings of this word?
Yeah, very rarely it is used. Like when Narada Muni attained yogic perfection, he felt as if he was hit by lightning and enlightenment came at the same time. The Sanskrit words are many. They don't immediately translate properly to one word in English, enlightenment. There are multiplicity of words which refer to this concept of awakening, where you're in a kind of state of sleep and then you wake up, or you're in a state of illusion and you see the truth, or you have realizations, you have experiences which bring you to the reality of your transcendental position, to attain transcendence. So these are the words which are used more often in the Vedic literature. Transcendence is an interesting word, not because it makes like sense that you lift up and go away, but rather that your consciousness is more aware of or more focused on points which are beyond only this platform of reality that we normally see. So you are transcending this reality by entering your consciousness into another realm, which is of a divine nature.
Right. And in a bhakti tradition, is transcendence used as a state of consciousness where people are going to, or any other words for such a state of consciousness?
Well, transcendence is used a lot, but not exactly in the term, using the term transcendent. It more used in the term of Krishna consciousness.
Okay, that's fine.
That the phrase Krishna consciousness represents a state of transcendence within which your consciousness is more focused on God than the reality around you. So that means you could engage in acts of devotion where you serve God, or you can speak about God, or you can chant names of God. This falls within the platform of Krishna consciousness, which is in and of itself a transcendental state.
And is this ideal state of human being according Krishna consciousness, or there is something else?
No, the ideal state of human existence is to live within the state of Krishna consciousness, being always absorbed in Krishna, in devotion. And the ideal state is to live a spiritual life of devotion. And that's fine. I mean, that's wonderful.
Does they have a criteria that you are in the Krishna consciousness? Can you?
There we get into trouble. There we start having those issues which I brought up originally. So, for example, the criteria of being Krishna consciousness, if you were to look at the lives of recognized great souls of the past, let's say Goswamis of Vrindavan, they lived there at the time of Lord Chaitanya. They were so absorbed in the divine nature that their energy was basically living within the spiritual world, and their bodies were going through motions in the material world. Or they would be so spiritualized that anything they did was basically as if it was a spiritual act. So now that form of Krishna consciousness is wonderful, because what it is that the energy, our energy, is resonating, is vibrating at the same frequency of the spiritual realm. So the greatest criterion of Krishna consciousness is when your frequency is the frequency of the same frequency as the spiritual realm. So that Krishna consciousness in its essence, at the end of the whole thing, includes all kinds of stuff that's just beyond this creation. To extract individual aspects of it and make them to be qualifications for being or becoming Krishna conscious, I think is a disservice to the process of actual connection to God, actual bhakti. And again, don't forget, I have not had contact with ISKCON for, it's going to be 24 years very soon. So I know some devotees and I know what they think and I hear now and then something. But as far as what it's like to live within that, I have no experience for 24 years.
But you had enough experience before, so probably.
Yeah, I had 30 years of experience before. So,
yeah.
But just because it was like that then doesn't mean it's like that now. But I would assume it hasn't changed that much.
What's not okay with children of families? What wasn't okay?
Well, I don't like to start trashing people in time,
Yes,
but there was
sure.
a lot of abuse, and not only people were abused, children, women, families, even individual men. I mean, people were abused because the vision was not to care for the individual. The vision was to make a great success. And
what the success was? What?
Buildings, new temples, lots of money, books, festivals, big programs, build more temples.
All over the world?
Yeah, sure, whatever. So when the focus is like that, these things in and of themselves are not bad. But when the focus is that way, the mentality becomes corporate.
But the focus should be on the Krishna consciousness, isn't it?
It should be on the individual and the development of their spiritual evolution. Yes. So
why it was not on that?
Why? I would say because when it was initially conceived in the Western tradition, and Prabhupada was a practical person, so he saw what he could do, he saw how things could work, and he may have presented things in such a way that it created an impression that this was the value structure to be followed. And that was built upon.
So it was his values?
Yes, but he also inherited them. You know, he was a product of Victorian society in India. The British culture at that time was Victorian, so he inherited many things like that.
I not fully understand what do you mean by Victorian society.
Queen Victoria, she was the queen at that time.
This is I know, but I don't know.
India was under the control of the British. Yeah. So Queen Victoria had very, like, for example, she was very conservative, incredibly conservative about every aspect of society. So that culture was introduced to Indians over time, and that was part of their basic, that turned into a major aspect of their culture. And that was, and then there were other aspects, like the way children were trained. It was a political Hindu organization called the RSS, created it for making all children, become totally into a fanatical version of Hinduism to counteract the British. So there was, at the same time, Victorian society, and then there was rebellion against it, and at the same time there was trying to make money despite it, and then there was Gandhi and his movement. So all of this created a situation, and then there was the way in which Krishna consciousness had changed from Bhaktivinoda to Bhaktisiddhanta to what Prabhupada accepted the way it should be. So he inherited a lot because we're all the product of everything that has happened before. And nobody can say they're not. And even though Prabhupada himself was a good person,
Mhm.
incredibly intelligent person,
Mhm.
and ultimately a very wise person.
Mhm.
I think he could not foresee the results of his value structure
Mhm.
dominating the way in which ISKCON ultimately put more interest in the corporate than into the individual. Even though he himself, were he to have lived longer, because he was not around that long,
Mhm.
almost certainly he would have understood. But we don't have that opulence or
Mhm.
possibility because we don't have that luxury. It's not possible. He was gone.
Mhm.
So then the individuals who had to carried on with what they had. And they were given a messy situation and they had to carry on with it.
Mhm.
You know, you can't blame too much. So for me, I got sick of the blaming thing very quickly. And I just said, I'll do it my way, which means I'm going to take care of me. I'll share what I know. I'll share my experiences. I'll share what is valuable. I'll share what is important. You like it, you don't like it, that's up to you. I can only give you what I got.
Mhm.
Now, there are very specific differences between those who think God is just that all Brahman oneness, all pervading oneness of all existence. And our,
I found this on the web.
no, I didn't ask you, Siri. And all, our goal to do is to enter into that effulgence and become one with God. Now, being one with God, sure, that's not bad, but to lose your personality and your personal existence to do that, I don't know why someone would want to do it, because being us with God is so much better. But that's their choice. They've chosen to do that. And I can't speak about their